You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we've reached the end of the Cricket World Cup group stage. All 45 group stage contests in the book. We've got 3 more of them to talk about. We'll be doing that quickly in part 1, and then we'll be moving on to the feast that is the Cricket World Cup semi-finals. We've got India v New Zealand on Wednesday, and then Australia v South Africa on Thursday. They're 2 big games with a lot of history, and I can't wait to talk about them. In part 1, it'll be me, Jack, with Max. How you doing, Max?
Hello, yeah, good. Looking forward to finally some knockout action.
Yeah, it feels a little overdue, I would say, but we're there, and we're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. The royal we, looking forward to it. And Ross is going to be joining us in part 2 to have his say on the semi-finals. Max, before we get into things, just a reminder to all of our listeners to click follow, to share the podcast with your friends. Be liberal with the sharing. We're getting to the really juicy part of the World Cup now. We've got shows coming up after the semi-final on Wednesday, after the semi-final on Thursday, after the final on Sunday, and we might, but probably won't, to be honest, squeeze one in to preview the final between Thursday and Friday. So yeah, do get involved. And similar to the guys who are watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed there. Max, 3 matches to get through. We did the first 42 matches of the group stage. We did a little roundup for each of them. We talked about them, and we're not gonna break our streak now, even though all 3 of these matches essentially completely pointless.
Yeah,
let's go reverse chronologically. India took on the Netherlands yesterday. Do you want to tell us in brief what happened?
Yeah, so India v the Netherlands, last game of the group stage, completely meaningless in Bangalore, and India reprising their role of big bullies as they tend to in these sorts of occasions, and this was no different. Rohit, Shubman Gill both getting off to a flying start. Virat Kohli very kindly slowed things down a bit to get Netherlands back into the game, and then Shreyas Iyer and KL Rahul went ballistic at the end, belting over 100 runs off the last 8 or 9 overs, 410 for 4 they finished on. Netherlands were obviously never going to chase that, but they did get the accolade for fastest Team 50 against India at the World Cup so far, so well done them. But then, it all fell apart when the spin came on. Kohli became an elite all-rounder. And, I suppose the only thing, the only thing more condescending than what happened, I think, in that second innings is what happened today when the British government decided that we could have a foreign secretary who was a former prime minister who wasn't even an MP. So it was a short-lived crown for India of taking the piss and making everyone feel belittled. But they did it nonetheless. I'm going to just start on that one because I thought it was a bit much. But I don't know. I'd like to see what you think. Whether and I'd also like to hear what Ross thinks, but I don't know if he'll get here in time.
No, personally, I've got no problem. They won the match. They know they've got a knockout match in 3 days' time. I don't have any issue, giving Surya Kumar Yadav a bowl. Does it mean that you're watching the highest quality product? Is it slightly condescending to the Netherlands? Perhaps, but this is the end of a tournament. The Netherlands aren't going to feature in the knockout stages. India are. India have to think about the next step. They gave plenty of respect, I would say, to the Netherlands by smashing them for 410, doing what South Africa didn't do, doing what Bangladesh didn't do, doing what I think everyone didn't do, actually, to the Netherlands. I don't think they conceded 400 runs. So Australia racked up some, didn't they? But I don't know if they got the 400. Maybe it was 399. So I think it's perfectly reasonable for India to want to take their foot off the gas a little bit. And effectively keep some overs in the legs of Siraj and Shami, mainly Siraj and Shami. They still managed to bowl 9 overs of Bumrah and 10 of Kuldeep. But I'm not angered. I'm not raging about this.
Yeah, I'm not buying that as an argument. If they were worried about overs in the legs of Siraj and Shami, then just play Shardul Thakur. Like, why are you even putting them on the pitch if that's what you're?
Is that not showing the Netherlands and the tournament some respect in and of itself there? I mean, like, I don't think Earlier in the tournament when Kohli was faffing around trying to get his 100, I was quite critical of that, and I think I said something to the effect of the point of cricket is to get more runs than the other team. It isn't to get hundreds. Like the personal accolade there is pure ego. It's nothing to do with winning the cricket match. India in this scenario, there is a bigger strategy at play here, like protecting some of their fast bowlers for a match they have to play in 2 days' time at a ground where fast bowling has been pivotal. Kind of makes sense. I think if you look at the bigger picture, I'm much more comfortable with this than I am some of the stuff that's happened earlier in the tournament. I think it's reasonable. I think it's probably what I would have done if I was the captain. Is not pointlessly blast through over after over of my main strike bowlers when the game is in the bag, and there's bigger things to play for. I mean, just as well, slight devil's advocate here. Virat Kohli has bowled in the tournament already. He has bowled in his career. So has Rohit Sharma.
Virat Kohli's not really necessarily the one I have an issue with. It's bowling Shubman Gill and Suryakumar Yadav. I think that's the bit, and bowling literally everyone. That's the bit where it's getting to take the piss territory. Like bowl a couple of Virat Kohli, maybe even bowl a couple of Rohit Sharma. He's bowled before as well. But when you're then throwing those two in, I think it's deeply disrespectful. And I don't think there's any chance they'd have done it if they were playing, England or Pakistan or South Africa. I mean, if South Africa hadn't qualified and it was them in the last game, I don't think there's any chance they'd have done it to them, because they know further down the line there might be some retribution involved, or they know that Tejan Manuru isn't going to blast them for 150 off 50 balls if they do it. So that's why I think it's disrespectful. That is a reality.
That is a reality of where we're at in the tournament. The Netherlands are bottom. They've won 2 out of 8 matches when this was taking place, and it was going to be 2 out of 9. Whoever bowled, I could have come on to bowl. I don't think that India have done anything wrong. I don't. I think they've shown plenty of respect by batting properly. They've shown plenty of respect by playing pretty much their best 11. Yeah, at a certain point they realise the game's over and it turns into a little bit of a circus. But that I think by this point they had earned their right. I mean, they're not completely taking the mick. They're not turning down runs just for the sake of it. The guys who did bowl, they tried their best. It wasn't. They weren't just lobbing moonballs up, were they? It was to the best of Suryakumar Yadav's ability, his bowling, and Kohli got a wicket. So I don't really see what your problem is.
Yeah, I didn't like it, but I would have. Well, I really would have liked it if they'd done it against South Africa when South Africa were like 50 odd for 6. That would have been great. That would have been a proper flex. I'd have had so much time for that. But doing it against the Netherlands, I don't know, leaves a bad taste for me. But nevertheless, they were phenomenal with the bat, and they've been phenomenal throughout the tournament. So I suppose you can say they've earned the right.
Just to say, at that point, South Africa. Why wouldn't you do that to South Africa? South Africa were their main rivals for a place at the top of the table. I mean, I know it's unlikely that India were going to lose 2 games after that South Africa match, but if they were going to, absolutely pulverizing their net run rate was a good way to ensure that South Africa couldn't leapfrog them and get the easier match v New Zealand. So I think in the context, I don't really see what the issue is. I actually don't have much more. I mean, I'm glad you got a talking point from that game, to be honest.
I'd find something.
Yeah, the only thing I've got 2 notes. 1, easy win, full stop. So I don't know where I was going to go with that. That's a real piece of Alan Shearer analysis from Match of the Day there, isn't it? And the second one, King Legend got his mandatory 100 against the minnow, which did happen.
At least he did it quickly this time.
Very funny. I thought it was quite funny that, obviously he's actually played quite well this tournament, but he is, for me, a little bit of a figure of fun, and nothing is funnier than King Legend turning up against the Netherlands after everyone else has already done all the damage. I bet he slept really well.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. There was a point as well where I thought they could get 500 India, so I'm slightly disappointed they didn't try and do something absolutely crazy with the bat and instead settled for just extremely good.
Oh, you want to do that though? They might have injured one of their batters, and then
Exactly. Max, nothing left on this match. I think we'll get through the games quite quickly because we want to spend a little bit longer talking about the semi-finals on this episode of TCP. Which we don't call it TCP enough, do we? If we were good at branding, I think TCP is.
Yeah, I know you don't want to get confused with the brand of antiseptic lotion, do you? So
is TCP as well the drug that rapper took before he bit someone's face off?
I don't know. But if it is, we don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, maybe that's 2CP. Someone probably
there is one called 2CB. Is it that? I don't know.
2CB, yeah. Obviously Max and I are big party guys, and you can tell from our deep knowledge of the illicit drugs market there. But if you know more,
where would we get some? No.
Find us on Twitter at the Cricket Pod, and drop us a DM, hook us up. We're not going to eat Ross's face. We don't want your drugs. Thank you. The next game, Max. The next game. Let's do Bangladesh Australia just in case, because Ross is coming. Maybe Ross wants to talk about England with Pakistan, but we'll do it the other way round for yesterday. Bangladesh v Australia. I summarise this one. Bangladesh got 300 runs, Max. That's incredible, isn't it?
Go on to Bangladesh.
Shakib goes home, and everyone, the weight of Shakib's oppressive captaincy lifted. Suddenly, Bangladesh are scoring runs for fun. The innings features 3 run-outs. Doesn't matter. They keep going. They power on. Nobody gets a ton. Don't need a ton. Only one guy gets a 50. But they're playing as a team. This is the Bangladesh we wanted to see the whole way through the tournament. 306 for 8 is what they get. You get the sense at Pune that might have been a little bit underpowered, but I'm going to give Bangladesh credit for a decent job with the bat there. It was okay. Thumbs up from Jack Hope on that one. In response, they picked up Travis Head pretty early in the piece. Taskin Ahmed, who's had a pretty quiet tournament, and that has disappointed me. I thought he'd be a little bit of a force in this Cricket World Cup, but it hasn't been. It wasn't to be, rather. Gets Travis Head. Unfortunately for Bangladesh, they only pick up one other wicket. David Warner falling for 53. As Mitch Marsh boosts his World Cricket Player of the Year credentials with another century, 177 off 132 balls. It's a pretty good innings, Max. It's the talking point from the game, as far as I'm concerned. Mitch Marsh, the Bison, Player of the Year. Talk to me.
That's quite the bold claim you're going with there. I suspect there might be a few people who would offer up some different names for Player of the Year, and I think you could give it to Glenn Maxwell for one single performance. But not to be deterred, Mitch Marsh gave himself a go, and we've been waiting for Mitch Marsh to do something a little bit, haven't we, in this tournament? He started off opening because Travis Head was injured. He's moved back down to 3 now, and is it another one of those cases with Australia where you're thinking, has it finally come at the right time? Has he finally found some form, or started seeing the ball a bit better just when you need him to, when the knockouts happen, just when you really don't want Australia to be at their best? Come the knockouts, could be the time. I mean, on the flip side, it was Bangladesh, so into the meat grinder. But you can't write off the innings itself. It was super impressive, and it's always nice when Mitch Marsh goes big because it's always fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. I mean, there is the Bangladesh tax that we have to factor in here, and his other World Cup 100 came against Pakistan during the doldrums period. But 426 runs, a strike rate of 109 over the World Cup isn't bad.
That's quite good, yeah.
That's a good World Cup.
Better than I had him down for. Fair enough.
He's flown under the radar a little bit, and this isn't how averages work, but he has got 300 of those runs in two matches, so it's been quite feast or famine.
It will count.
But if you average it out, which is how averages work, not bad. Like it actually looks pretty good. I mean, obviously the World Cricketer of the Year point is somewhat tongue in cheek.
Yes.
But he did have a good Ashes. He's had a good 6 months, Mitch Marsh. He's having, I don't know if he's quite in the swan song period of his career. I think he's about 32.
It's definitely a renaissance. Whether it's
Renaissance.
the final chapter is to be determined.
It's a new dawn, maybe. The third act, beginning of the third act.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah, I like that. Like, young Tyro, kind of bad. Third act is underway, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the Mitch Marsh show. Did anything else in this match take your fancy?
Nice to see Sean Abbott get a game, I guess.
Yeah. Is that his first of the tournament?
You're gonna make the trip. You might as well roll him out.
Yeah, I think he dropped someone for 6 earlier in the competition. That's my only.
Yeah, he got to field a few times, didn't he? But
yeah, which is nice.
Came on, had a go, couple of wickets. Rest up Mitch Starc for a semi-final of being carted all over the place. Be good.
Yeah, they left Maxwell out as well, didn't they? The Aussies, probably still stiff as a board after he did everything in the game before. But it brings the tournament to a close for these two. I mean, we've talked about Bangladesh a few times. Disappointing tournament for them, and we'll be previewing the Australia match against South Africa later. But any reflections on the group stage for either of them that you'd want to touch on before we get to the knockout part?
Well, I suppose with Bangladesh, it's as you could say, the two have taken very opposite trajectories, haven't you? Bangladesh started off beating Afghanistan and then failed to do anything really beyond that. And Australia started pretty slowly and have just gradually been improving bit by bit up to the point where they're now looking like a decent side who know what they're about and know what they're doing. And with the blip against Afghanistan and then being dug out by one of the all-time virtuoso performances in cricket, just a little reminder of what the individuals can do as well as them as a team. So Australia, I think, are looking pretty good. They should be feeling pretty confident as they head into the knockouts. But I think just the less said about Bangladesh, the better. So let's just move on.
Yeah, I think fair enough. So Ross isn't with us yet. We'll do the England game without him, which I'm sure he'll be devastated by. Do you want to summarise this one?
Can do, yes. So England, Pakistan. Pakistan, they had a very outside chance of pipping New Zealand to 4th place. I think it involved a 289-run win or something in the ballpark, or chasing England's total down in about 10 overs. England won the toss and batted first, so that removed any real possibility of the Pakistan net run rate overhaul, given that, let's face it, no one's chasing anything in 10 overs. And England, they hit their stride just at the right moment. Final game of the tournament finally brought out a few performances. Johnny Bairstow hit a 50, Joe Root hit a 50, Ben Stokes, possibly England's only shining light with the bat, looked pretty good, and a couple of blows at the end from Butler and Brooke. 333 for 7, England. It was a decent looking score against a Pakistan side that are sometimes good and are sometimes not. And we got the not good Pakistan in this occasion. I think probably understandably, once they'd lost the toss, I'd have just given up at that point. All hope was gone. And David Willey, once again, sticking 2 fingers up to the England contract negotiators with a pretty good opening spell of bowling to add to his 15 off 5 that he got with the bat at the end, showcasing his talents. And it was a bit of a revival, a bit of cameo at the end from Harris Ralph, of all people, who went some way to chipping away ever so slightly at his record run concession total for the World Cup. But yeah, pretty meek end for Pakistan and their World Cup. But England at least papering over some cracks, getting ready for their all-important tour of the West Indies in December.
I mean, I'm going to say this first of all. Pakistan have been pretty crap this entire tournament. Like one fairly fluky win against New Zealand aside.
Yeah.
They've really flattered to deceive. Who else have they beaten? Pakistan have beaten. They beaten Bangladesh, the Netherlands, and Sri Lanka. Like
Yeah.
it's not a heroic World Cup, and I
It's
think,
not
to be honest,
semi-final form, is it?
they still needed another 201 runs off 25 overs against New Zealand. Now they probably were favourites in that match, but this is Pakistan we're talking about, and I think it's certainly not a given that they'd have chased that down. So for them to lose to a similarly crap England in the final match, I think was quite fitting. To be honest, I also was quite interested from an England camp perspective. I did suspect this might happen. That the spin has kind of started on this World Cup tournament, and already people are talking about like how it shows great character from the lads that they've bounced back from such a poor start to actually finish quite well.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? It's genuinely embarrassing.
But this is what they're trying to spin, and I think overall I couldn't really disagree more with taking any positives actually out of this World Cup. I think from Pakistan, it's been a bit of a shit show. There's been some injuries there which might mitigate how bad their tournament has been. From England, I think just a fucking disaster is the summary. Regardless of whether they manage to win a couple of matches at the end to ensure they go to the Champions Trophy.
Yeah, and it's been largely self-inflicted as well. They've gone away from any sort of consistent, coherent template for what they want to do. I mean, there was an interview with Rob Key, wasn't there, about what went wrong recently, and some people have come out of that praising him for being reasonably candid and honest, but also if you sort of scratch a bit further, there's all the same platitudes and nonsense coming out as there always have been, blaming the contract protest started on the 1st of October. What can you do? It would have been leaked otherwise. Like, I mean, it's weak. It's all weak. And I just want to see better. Like, they picked squads for this West Indies tour, and 5 of the guys in there are some of the worst performing people from the World Cup, and then all the others are rested, in inverted commas. Yeah, they seem to have just decided that Sam Curran overnight has become a terrible cricketer, despite being the player of the tournament in the T20 World Cup. I know they're 2 different formats, but like, he had a couple of bad games and suddenly he's terrible now. It's I mean, they should not. There should be no attempt to spin anything positive from this World Cup. It's been an abomination.
One thing that I would say was positive from this game, it was nice to see David Willey take his 100th ODI wicket.
Yes.
Obviously, it meant something to him to sign out well. And I think if you were looking through the disaster from the England point of view, not for the long term, but
the one man who's not playing for England anymore, the guy who was forced into retirement, was England's best performing player. Yeah.
You would say he had a pretty good tournament. And
that's thanks to the contract, of course, because he wouldn't have played so well with the fire in his belly if England hadn't cast him aside as they did. So, he should be thankful, really, that he's had the opportunity to take his 100th wicket, because, if he hadn't been denied the contract, then there's no telling he might not have got there. He might not even have played well enough to take those wickets. So he should be thankful. He should be grateful.
Yeah. Right. We're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back. Ross is going to join us, and we're going to be talking semi-finals, the big semi-finals. I don't know if you get. Let's just get on with the break.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. Ross, you're in the house. How you doing, Ross?
For the big semi-finals, compared to the little semi-finals that also happened, So,
Well, I was going to talk about like franchise comp semi-finals and how they're not as big, but like it doesn't matter. It's a normal size semi-final for a Cricket World Cup. I think the same size as they've always been.
And I'm buzzing to talk about it, if I'm perfectly honest. I literally cannot wait.
Max and I have been through all the group games. Did you have
Mm.
any final thoughts that you wanted to share? We'll
No,
give you
I was listening to the last kind of 10 minutes of that, and I think I completely agree with you on the England front and the kind of spin from the teams that have failed here. And it is embarrassing on the England front, if I'm perfectly honest. And I've read Matt Roller's done a good article on the Cricket Monthly worth going to read today, and it's just like literally just like punching yourself in the penis yet again from England. It just isn't a very good story to tell. But we have to remember this is cricket and it's not football. And I think there's a lot of pieces on here going, oh well, Matthew Mott should lose his job, Joss Buttler should lose his job, Rob Key should lose his job. I'm not quite sure that's the culture around the game in cricket. So I think sometimes we have to have a person to blame. Someone has to lose their job because of it. I think Rob Key coming out and kind of saying, well, actually, people sometimes deserve the bit to do what's right and actually rectify what went wrong. But how long that lasts with kind of media pressure and what else. And let's be fair, other stuff that will come out after this World Cup, because I don't think Owen Morgan actually comes out and says something is wrong in the camp without knowing so. It doesn't seem like a kind of a rumor or gossip focused person. So it would be interesting what happens in probably the next 3 or 4 weeks, if I'm perfectly honest.
I disagree, Ross. I want to see the government step in and sack the entirety of the ECB.
I want to see the government step in and make Rishi Sunak the captain. We've seen him in the back garden at number 10 pick up a wicket. I think it was a caught behind, wasn't it? Like, you can turn his arm over. Rishi Sunak in the bits and pieces role. That's what we need. Extend the batting order.
Another posh privileged private schooler in the England team. How shocking!
Right, let's get on with the semi-finals. First up, we're going to do India because it happens next. India v New Zealand. This has been a low-key rivalry, a low-key ICC tournament rivalry, I would say, over the last few years. And by and large, New Zealand have got the best of India. I mean, off the top of my head, 21 or the 21-22 T20 World Cup, COVID. I'm not sure exactly which one it was. You know what I mean. They romped to victory. There was the World Test Championship final, obviously 2019, the 2-day ODI. Intrigue, Max. Let's set the scene. What are you thinking for this game happening in Mumbai?
Well, the venue is a big thing here, isn't it? Because I don't think there's anywhere else so far in this World Cup where there's been such a stark difference in the abilities of the team batting first and the abilities of the team batting second. I mean, we've seen part of it's been the atmospheric conditions. Like, we've seen some ridiculously hot weather where teams have been then deciding that they're going to bowl first and cook themselves before batting, which may have impacted things. We've also seen some serious swing and seam under the lights and the power plays. And, I think there's the average power play score. I think batting second was at 42 for 4 compared to about 60 for 1 at the 1KD this World Cup. Some of that's obviously, there's some pretty extreme events involved there. One of them being Sri Lanka being capitulating completely. But that was at the hands of some incredible new ball bowling by India's seamers, and they are the seamers that are going to be playing in this game. So essentially, if New Zealand end up losing the toss and have to chase, that's going to be tricky. And their best hope is winning the toss and batting first. I would have thought. I think that the toss is going to be massive. But the interesting thing about it is like the way the two sides set out with their opening partnerships kind of sort of marry up quite nicely to how those conditions might play. And you've got sort of someone, like Devon Conway, who, or, if an early wicket falls, you can have Kane Williamson come in, who you've got some players who have got really good techniques and will be able to play a swinging ball, and they could maybe negotiate the power play if they find themselves under some pressure. And then on the other side, if India bat first, they've got Rohit and Gill, who they'll go hell for leather to start with, and will they have to rein it in if they end up chasing? So I think the power plays are going to be massive, and they're the big battles I'm really looking forward to seeing in this particular matchup.
Ross, Max mentioned the difference between scores batting first and second. The average score batting first at this World Cup in Mumbai is 357, chasing 188, and that includes Glenn Maxwell going nuts. That's Glenn Maxwell by himself has a higher average batting second than all the other teams in the tournament combined. So we've got to factor that in. It is fair to say, I think, with that in mind, that the toss is going to be pretty crucial here, isn't it?
It is, and this is where it comes down to my whole stick from the last T20 World Cup, that actually the semi-final shouldn't just be kind of one game, should be a best of 3 or something like that. The tournament's long enough already. Well, why not add some more games?
Still be playing at Christmas.
But if there's a side who New Zealand are dogged, right? They are fighters in the cricketing arena, and I think that actually, when it comes to this, I think in the chat someone said, I think it was Shiva said, toss doesn't matter. Semi-finals is all about pressure and how you handle it. I think what we've seen is New Zealand do know how to win against teams who finish in the bottom 5 of the standings. But I do think that they've got people who can, maybe not match up player for player with India, but can kind of have enough about them to actually have a proper game plan and a proper game management around it. The other thing is that their spinners are actually performing pretty well. And Max, I think we talked about Mitchell Santner on the show before, but Ravindra's also going. They're not too bad in that department. I thought that was going to be a weakness for them, but they've actually performed really quite well. So with
they've also got a lot of right-handers to bowl at.
Yeah. Oh God, I really do miss Rishabh Pant. But yeah, I think actually this is a really well matched game. I do think India are obviously favourites. I do think the toss is going to play a part in it, but I also think it should be a closer game than what we're seeing on the stats. And it might not be kind of brainless England making the decision, right, to bat in 50-degree heat. And hopefully it's what's the forecast saying? Is it going to be
50-degree heat? Yeah. I imagine it'll be hot. I think it will be hot. We talked about the difference in total scores batting first and second. I mean, it's even more stark, or I think it's just as stark in the power play. I think the score batting first is something like 55 for 1. The average score batting first is something like 55 for 1 at the end of the power play. It's 40 for 4 if you're batting second. The ball doesn't really swing in the first innings, and then goes all over the place for 15 overs in the second. I think for this to be a good game, bearing in mind the strength of sides, I think India are a lot better than New Zealand. That's my take on it, and I think in neutral conditions, India would have a very, very, very high chance of winning this. And I think if New Zealand have to bat second, I think it could be a little bit of a walkover. But in a scenario where India do have to bat in that dangerous period, I'm really interested, Max, to see what Rohit and Gill do. I think you mentioned it, like how will they potentially deal with what are probably realistically the toughest conditions that you'll face at this World Cup?
I think we've already seen it from Rohit in this World Cup, hasn't he? He said it himself. Was it the Australia game? Where right at the start, where actually the ball was swinging around, and
the England game actually.
Well, possibly it was the England game, wasn't it? Yeah. So I forgot that England even challenged anyone at any sort of form of cricket and made life difficult for anyone. It was the England game. You're absolutely right. And he said afterwards he basically had to go into test mode, and play it like that and value his wicket. So I think Rohit 100% well equipped to play it like that. Shubman Gill will be interesting because obviously he still likes to play shots. He does open the batting for India in tests when he's available, but tends to be a bit more free flowing, I suppose, in those situations. He has been susceptible to the moving ball a bit in Test cricket, so that is going to be interesting. I think I'll back Rohit to see it out. But if they do get Rohit early, in the scenario where India are batting second, chasing, and New Zealand are able to get Rohit out early, then it'll be really, really interesting. But I do agree. I think that there is probably a bit of a a gulf in quality, and the toss could even it up that way. I mean, if the toss goes the other way, it could be really tricky for New Zealand. But they also have sort of not accidentally, but by this point in the tournament, have kind of got their strongest side out now. Eventually, Southee's back. Trent Bolt's there. Lockie Ferguson overcame an injury. Maybe you'd argue Matt Henry would be in there, but I think they probably went into the tournament with the idea of having Ferguson, Bolt, and Southee, and then Santner's had a phenomenal tournament. So they've got weapons. Daryl Mitchell or Jimmy Neesham to bowl the final over and go for 30 and end the game. It's going to be interesting. I think New Zealand were one of the teams that ran India closer than others as well in the group stages, and then obviously you've got the history and the pressure, and I think there's a few India fans who are almost half expecting India to choke, aren't they? So there's added pressure there.
I mean, it is a long time since India won a knockout match in cricket. I reckon it's 2017, the last time India won a do or die contest, which is
they just won the Asia Cup, but yeah,
it doesn't count for me. Like unless all of the teams are there, it doesn't count. The Asia Cup, there's one other team in the Asia Cup that can beat them. Like that's not a real tournament. Like, come on, let's be serious here. I'm also interested to see how New Zealand will put together their innings. Batting first or second, I think one of the interesting things that has happened in the games between these two sides, I think pretty much across all formats, is that New Zealand have kind of mastered Jadeja, which has put a lot of pressure on India that they don't normally have. I mean, against most teams, Jadeja is just another frontline bowler, but he has, I think it's fair to say, struggled against the Kiwis historically. I wonder, Ross, bearing in mind there is a weakness in the Kiwis' fifth bowler, whether that could be a little bit of an equaliser. Can New Zealand use their skill against Jadeja to counter the fact that they're going to have to get through a lot of overs of Ravindra?
Here, this is where I think I come back to my kind of game management point for New Zealand. They seem to go into games with plans. I think they were quite unlucky, as much as I could have made the jibe around them not beating any of the big four the semi-finalists or the top five. They've actually done pretty well and had plans against some of the bowlers. So yeah, I think that they can look at that. I don't really see Jadeja as a weakness, if I'm perfectly honest, on kind of in any environment really. He could play on a green top and do reasonably well the way in which he bowls. But I do think the likes of Kane Williamson and Daryl Mitchell, Ravindra's having an unbelievable tournament. They've got real batting depth, and so I would be surprised. Regardless, I think they have a chance of chasing. I think you're going to need 280 as a minimum on here, but India have the ability to go even further than that. But I do think that New Zealand are going to have the game plan to manage some of that stuff. And all it takes is a Kuldeep Yadav to have a bad time out, right? They do have four other brilliant bowlers that they can kind of go to. The fact that they've got Shami's played, like the games that he's played in, and taken 4 wickets on average every single one. Siraj is coming back into the form at the right time. Bumrah is unbelievably reliable. I don't think if one of their bowlers has an off day, it's completely and utterly terminal for them, which is just unfair.
Yeah. Final question for you, Max, and then we're going to make predictions and we're going to say why we think whoever we think is going to win is going to win. It's in Mumbai. Now, in T20 cricket, Mumbai is a run fest. Like it's, the ball goes all over the place. If we see a pitch and conditions, for whatever reason, that make it a little bit more like IPL Mumbai and a little bit less like Cricket World Cup Mumbai, could New Zealand maybe throw in a real curveball and try and turn the game into just a slogfest?
How would they go about doing that?
Well, they got, for example, 400 runs against Pakistan. Yeah. This isn't a team. There's not the most explosive team at the World Cup, but it isn't a team over 50 overs that can't really pile on the runs. We've seen Ravindra do it a couple of times. Daryl Mitchell's got a little bit of pop. They've got a couple of guys down the order who can continue the slog if they need to. Conway, plenty of experience scoring runs at 130 or 140 in India, bulk runs. There's no reason to think that Williamson can't keep it ticking over as well. I mean, he had a pretty good innings, didn't he, against Pakistan? Now I know Pakistan and India, they're not a comparable bowling attack, but we are looking at a weaker side. To quote or to sort of paraphrase Dan Weston, long-term friend of the podcast, and we hope he'll be on the show this week. We're crossing our fingers. He would say if you're the weaker team, you want to introduce as much variance into the game as possible, as much randomness. A high-scoring contest is a way that New Zealand can do that.
Yeah, I it's a potential route, but I think again whether the overhead conditions contribute as well, just with the time of year. I think that's something that they'd probably want to be doing, batting first. But you also saw in that chase, I suppose, against Australia, they nearly took down 399, nearly being quite operative in that sentence. But I do think they've got I suppose the ability to keep going in that lineup. Whereas, maybe in the India middle order, it'll take a little bit of time to settle in before start smacking the ball all over the place. So we've seen India can do it in this World Cup now. So I think, whereas before the start of the World Cup, if you'd asked me this question, essentially I'd be saying that would be a really good option for New Zealand to go with. I think India have got the tools to match that, and obviously the weaker bowling of the New Zealand side means that it's sort of more viable for them to actually catch up with that New Zealand side. It's tricky. I think heavily, I think pro batting conditions probably would be slightly better for New Zealand overall, but the flip side to that is that if it isn't like that, there's the luck element of where the toss lands. So it's almost like what would you rather? Would you rather have a 50% shot at a 50% chance of winning, or a 100% shot at a 30% chance of winning? Like, where's the?
Well,
you're looking at me like you don't quite.
100% of 30% is 30%. 50% of 50% is 25%. Is that what you're asking?
So it's close though, isn't it? Which way is it going to go? Because you could end up
normally
with zero.
People would say, would you rather have a 30% chance or a 25% chance of winning? They wouldn't make the person do the maths.
Yeah, but that's not
the cricket podcast, mate.
That's not the point. That's not the point, Jack, is it? The point is that there's the toss element beforehand, which means that you might end up with 0 or you might end up with 50. But
we understand.
What do you want? Do you want skin in the game
right.
the entire time?
And just
almost lose immediately.
And just to get us away from countdown, anything that is an advantage to India, to New Zealand's batters, anything that's an advantage to India's bowlers is an advantage to India, right? And that's the bit. Like even on that front, I think from a batting perspective, Virat Kohli's in the form of his life yet again. Rohit Sharma has led from the front. Shubman Gill was in there. Shreyas Iyer and KL Rahul both for centuries in the previous game, and then they've got Jadeja just kind of be like, yeah, I'll hit some sixes at the end. Like it's one of those things. Any advantage for them is negated by what India have in the locker. I think the toss is the one that's super important and how that kind of comes in. And Krishna in the chat kind of talking about the importance of when the games actually start and the due factor that kind of comes into the evening, etc., which I think is kind of spot on.
Right, lads. It's time to make a prediction. Ross, you can go first. Who's going to win and why?
I've started this podcast talking about minerals, having the bottle to do it, and I've been picking everything this year on narrative. India will win purely on the fact that they're going to win the World Cup and Virat Kohli is going to score a century.
Okay, Matt.
I've got to go. I've got to go with precedent. Got to go with recent history. I've got to plump for the plucky Kiwis. They'll do it. The pressure will be too much. India will, collapse in a heap, and Siraj will go all over the place, and then New Zealand are going to do it. It's going to be an Antipodean final.
I'm going India. I think they're just so much better than everyone else in this tournament, or so much better than New Zealand. I think the other two teams have got a chance. I think that the final will be quite interesting, but that's what you get for winning the group stage, isn't it? Going 9 for 9, you get the easier match in the semi-finals. I think it is the easier match. I know that there is a history And there's a narrative argument for the Kiwis, Ross. I'm surprised you didn't pick up on that. But India are better, aren't they? Like, so, head over.
It is destined that Kohli is going to hit the Sachin's record-breaking century, either in the semi-final or the final. Probably in the final. So,
yeah, fair. And that would be quite the story, wouldn't it? I mean, that's got record listens, record views written all over it.
And it's important, right? Because Kohli is more important than the Indian cricket team, and so it's all about personal glory, isn't it? Cricket, as we've known from this. So.
At a certain level, absolutely. I mean, speaking of personal glory, this is a little tangent. Did you see the guy who got 6 wickets and 6 balls to win a club match in Australia?
No,
Did neither of you see this? This is incredible. No. So the team batting first gets, I think it was 165. Team batting second is 160 for 5. No, 160 for 4. Sorry. The captain brings himself onto bowl. 6 balls, 6 wickets. Celebrations. The double hat trick.
He was the captain that did that as well.
The captain did it as well.
Wow, that is that is impressive.
One of the teams as well. I mean, just to add another thing to it, called Surfers Paradise. What a name for a cricket club! Surfers Paradise Cricket Club.
I want to play there, wherever that is. I want to play there.
Australia, the Gold Coast, I think. Right, we're going to take a break after that diversion. We're going to come back, and it will be another big semi-final. Australia v South Africa.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. Just a quick reminder that if you're watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're on Spotify or Apple or Google or Acast or Pocket Cast or Overcast or one of the other random ones, make sure you click follow and tell your friends about the Cricket Podcast. Get the word out there. Be loud and proud. Ross, South Africa v Australia. This is a real
sandpaper derby.
The sandpaper derby, the kind of ugly side of cricket derby in a way. I am really looking forward to this. The 2 games, India v New Zealand, great. That plenty of stuff to talk about there, and I'm hugely looking forward to that. But this has really piqued my interest. I mean, I am so excited for this. Are you?
Yeah, and what I'm looking forward to is the kamikaze run out that happens to lose South Africa the game and a repeat of the 1999 World Cup. I think here though, there is so much promise here, and I've been really impressed actually with kind of the way in which Australia have gone about their business. Like, I almost forgot that they were Australia for a little while, and actually they've turned up and they've been clinical where they needed to be. They've got their kind of team selections quite right in this, other than kind of Marnus playing all the time, but even he's hit some runs. David Warner's come back to his form. And when Mitch Marsh kind of hits 177 not out, you're kind of a bit like, right, they've all seemingly have contributed at one point or another with the bat, other than Steve Smith, really, which is interesting. But Australia look strong. They look like they just always look like they know how to win, which is painful as an English fan. South Africa, on the other hand, have shown the high variance approach is magical to follow. They are literally like, we're going to hit 450 or we are going to get all out from 100. And I don't know which South Africa side is going to turn up here. And that makes it very exciting, I think, as a semi-final, as a big semi-final. I think that they are reasonably well matched in terms of bowling lineups and then batting lineups. I think there's a little bit more conservative side of things for Australia, but people like Maxwell have had an unbelievable tournament. You don't know what's kind of around the corner. So yeah, I think it's brilliantly balanced. And I think as much as India were favourites in the semi-final against New Zealand, I think this one's a little bit more well matched.
Max, I think I'd agree with Ross there that this is a more well matched semi-final. One of the things that I'm curious about is South Africa's team selection. There's the Bavuma injury, but then they've also got bowling options as well. Do you have any thoughts on which way they might go?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be tempted just to, stick with the blueprint of what's got them to where they are, which has been, well, basically horses for courses. But the go-to has been Maharaj Jansen, Ngidi Rabada and Coetzee. That's what they've been going with. That's what's been successful, and I would stick with it. I think finger spin tend to be pretty handy at Eden Gardens, particularly, thinking of KKR and IPL. IPL's gone by, but I'd be sticking with that personally. Bavuma being out is I think as much of an issue from the captaincy side of things as anything. He's not had, he's not set the World Cup alight with the bat, but he's a real leader.
Trained, apparently today.
He's trained, isn't he? So it might be it. Okay, so we'll hope that, because you want to see Bavuma playing. He's a not just important player with the bat. Like, he's not had the greatest World Cup, but his stats are phenomenal. But he's an unbelievable leader, really considered, calm guy, and it'll be really important, I think, in a game like this to have that and have those margins covered. It's a weird one, because I do agree that it's a real tight one. Like, it's probably as close to 50-50 as it gets. But if you look at the last 5 matches that the two teams have played, they've all been over 100 runs in terms of the victory margin, because they've obviously played that series before the World Cup. Australia started out with a 123 run win, and then South Africa won 4 on the bounce, all by more than 100 runs. So that also tells you, something about the two sides, and I think chasing has been a problem for both of them. Obviously, recently South Africa did overcome Afghanistan, but they wobbled a bit. And, this was against an Afghanistan side that were basically out. Australia have also struggled a little bit chasing. I think they've looked better setting a platform. Again, I mean, they were down and out against Afghanistan before Glenn Maxwell went mental. So team batting first, I think, has to be a big favourite in this game, just because of the way the two sides play. But I do hope it is a bit closer than 100 runs.
Well, absolutely. Ross, there was an interesting article from the director of cricket, South Africa's director of cricket, who said South Africa are playing, they've taken inspiration from tiki-taka football, so like a really modern footballing comparison there, saying that they want to be the artistic hunters, finish games early, be explosive.
Okay. Sexy cricket.
Is that what you want? Is that what you want under the gun in a semi-final, or do you want to be the kind of cricket winning, grinding machine that Australia are?
Well, I think if we look at the trophy cabinet, I think you want to be what Australia are. Don't you? Really, I think we're being honest. I think there's a lot to be said for the journey and the culture and kind of the approach that is taken, and the idea of sexy cricket or being an artistic hunter. I can buy into that. I can really buy into that. But at the end of the day, the lesser kind of people would be like, oh no, it's all about winning. Normally right on the thing. You look back, right? If you were to be a Hall of Famer, you're not looking back on kind of 6-time semi-final losers South Africa in this regard. You're talking about the Ricky Pontings of the world, right? And I think that you do want to be able to not blow your load in the semi-final. I think there is a little bit here around give themselves every single chance to post a good score, and that doesn't mean kind of absolutely losing your head. Like, you've seen how aggressive that Quinton de Kock has batted. They know they've got fireworks in the middle overs in Klaasen and Miller, and even Jansen, to be perfectly honest, and Markram is not disappointed either. So I think South Africa have enough about them to have a properly good game plan and to not kind of end up 3-4 wickets down inside the power play because they've got a little bit excited. Like, they can afford to take their time with what's on show.
It's not like that Australia team of yesteryear, they were grinders, was it? It's not like they were just churning out wins off the back of, just very considered safe cricket. They were pummeling people. This is a different South Africa, I think, to maybe what we've seen in the past. So I don't know. I feel like maybe having that about them is a good thing, especially when you're coming up against a team like Australia, who sort of have the ability to put it on you as well. I think it's that's probably why we've ended up with those ridiculous results that we have in the last few times they've played each other. But it's exciting. I like this South Africa side. I want to you want to will them on, but then you do just can't help but feel that Australia v South Africa is just going to come back round to what always happens in South Africa in knockout games, but you just so desperately want them to do it this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're I think they are a very endearing side, the South Africans. And they play swashbuckling cricket. I think they've scored the quickest of any team in this tournament, including India, which is good going. Although I haven't rechecked that since India got 400 against the Netherlands, so that could be slightly out of date. But they're up there. They're really really quick scoring side. You have to kind of root for a team with someone like Heinrich Clark. I mean, I know Australia have got Glenn Maxwell, and the Maxwell-Klaasen thing balances out a little bit. But we've seen a lot of Glenn Maxwell. He's got a World Cup winners' medal. Maybe it's time for Maxwell to let someone else have a go and pass it on to South Africa. I also think as well that it's weird how narratives go in these tournaments sometimes. Like South Africa they finished above Australia in the tournament. They destroyed Australia earlier in the competition, and people were really panicking from an Australian point of view. I listened to a couple of podcasts after that defeat. I think it was their second defeat, and people have been Australian fans and pundits have been really fatalistic about their chances, kind of ignoring the fact that they played the two other best teams in the competition. And focusing purely on the two losses. But they were talking about sort of rifts in the dressing room and how the players might be a little bit past it and how Cummins wasn't a particularly great leader. Now that they've won 7 matches in a row, everyone's loving Australia. And South Africa have had...
Have you not heard the good news as well? Pat Cummins to solve racism in Australia as well. The woke captain is actually doing the business now, and everyone's just like, why have we been racist all these years? Actually, they're following the cum dog, and they've gone full net zero as well. All mining has stopped. All petrol cars have been banned. It's an amazing turn of events for them.
All just because of Pat Cummins' captaincy. That's astounding.
He's just
in the last 7 matches.
Yeah, inspirational, and that's how fickle some Australia fans can be.
Yeah, so I look, you've got those two things going on. I think those narratives clash a little. I'm going to start first on who's going to win and why. I think South Africa are a better one-day cricket team than Australia, and I think because of the trajectories of the tournament, we've lost that slightly. We've missed the fact. I mean, South Africa, one of their 2 defeats was a complete aberration to the Netherlands. Like, this team are good. This team are really, really good. The only other team they've lost to is India. So I'm saying South Africa are going to do it, Max. I think they're going to break the hoodoo.
I can't do it. I can't back them. I've got this nagging doubt, this nagging feeling that Australia are going to do what they always do and spoil the party, shit in the pool. That's what that's what they're all about. And yeah, I'm going Australia, and it's all about narrative on this one. Because I do agree. I think South Africa are the better side. I think they're the more well put together side. They've got the better engine room. That's the sort of that middle overs period with the batting. South Africa take the edge on that, and I think that's where the big difference is between those two sides. But I just can't help but feel Australia might win the toss bat first, and South Africa will end up in a puddle.
Matt Roth, you get the deciding vote.
I'm going to back this all about who's got kind of more skin in the game, and I think there is almost like a desperation for South Africa to do well. A Quinton de Kock's final, like either penultimate game or final game, point to prove, is a big game player. I think their bowling lineup is particularly strong and will challenge kind of all of the batsmen actually in the Australia lineup. And it'll be also interesting to see what Australia do from a selection point of view, because they've kind of chopped and changed a little bit with people having Vertigo versus Cam Green versus Stoinis versus Travis Head in the lineup, etc., and Marnus Labuschagne. So it'll be interesting to see what they go with. But yeah, for me, I want South Africa to win, and so I'm going to say South Africa are going to win.
Okay, so we are predicting a South Africa v India final on Sunday. We'll see how that plays out. As I said, we've got shows on Wednesday and Thursday after both semi-finals, so make sure you join us and you are subscribed. Just to wrap things up, we had a super chat in from Singularity who said we have never beaten New Zealand in an ICC knockout game, obviously referring to India there. So, that is something to consider. There's going to be shocks. If it is South Africa v India, they're two quite historically big results.
Exactly, yeah, that's true, and it'll be a big final, isn't it, compared to it being a small final? So
it will be a big fight. I mean, like the small final possibility here is South Africa v India, which will be ridiculous in the 130,000 seat Modi Dome. So
no, I think you said India versus South Africa. You mean Australia versus New Zealand in the that would be a smaller one. Wouldn't it?
Oh, sorry, I meant South Africa v New Zealand. That would be brilliant. And we had one question from Twitter from Hungry Golden, suggesting that India might drop Shami for Ashwin. I think that's a bit of a reach, giving.
There's no chance. There is zero chance. They're not happening. Like it's literally like they have got the best team. Like they literally are playing it. They are super aggressive. They're literally the worst thing they could do now is pick fucking Shardul Thakur. If that happens, pack your bags, leave, and just be like this. I'm never watching this India lineup again.
Well, it was Ashwin, not Thakur.
Ashwin. I don't think Ashwin will get in purely in the fact they don't like Ashwin for some reason. Shardul Thakur is second on the pecking order, I reckon, to come back in.
All right. Any final words, Max?
Yeah, I just think if it is a South Africa-India final, that is probably India's best chance of going home with it, just because then you've got 2 chokers. So something's got to give.
I like that. Ross, any words from you?
No, I just think what a great couple of semi-finals we got ahead of us. And yeah, as much as the last 15, 16 days have given us something to a real consequence and lack that a little bit, I think here we've got what we want. So yeah, here's to a couple of good cricket games.
I am excited. We'll be back on Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone.